Welcome to the channel, guys. We are finally back again for another First Impression Fridays. Today I'm going to talk about two fragrances, one by J-Scent, and this is Roasted Green Tea, and the other one is Wilhelm Perfumery's Morning Chess, so stay tuned for that. And if you like First Impressions, top 10 lists, fragrance reviews, clone comparisons, hit that subscribe button for more great content. So it's been a minute since I made a video, but you know what, everyone needs a break once in a while, so I did take one, hoping to get back into full swing of things soon enough. But I thought a great way to get back into it would be to do a First Impression Fridays. I've had these samples for a while, and I've heard a lot about Morning Chess, and it's one that's compared to Aventus a lot. I did want to try it out. Not a huge Aventus fan, so I'm not actually expecting a lot, but I don't know. People talk very highly about it, so I thought it would be great. Now, I have tried one J-Scent fragrance before. That's Ramune, which I think is a great, fun fragrance. Really great if you like those soda pop vibes. Very fun. I also like tea fragrances, so I thought, you know what, this would be a great one to try, Roasted Green Tea. I am a green tea fan, although my favorite tea is black tea. But you know what, I'm going to start with Morning Chess and see what this one is all about, see what all the hype is about. You know, see how close it actually is to Aventus, at least from what I remember. So I've definitely tried a few different Aventus-like fragrances. So obviously Aventus, some of the clones. I do kind of get the, on the opening, I definitely get that vibe. So there's kind of like this pineapple-y, bergamot-y burst, very fruity. Has a kind of a bit of a woody, musky undertone. It does definitely remind me of Aventus. I wouldn't say this smells exactly dead on Aventus, but if somebody tried to tell me that this wasn't inspired by Aventus, I would have a very hard time believing that. Very fresh, very fruity. There's like a really hint of something underneath that fruitiness. It's a little bit tart. I get kind of what feels like a little bit of a musky woodiness as well underneath, so it really does actually... It's very, very similar to Aventus. Now, I said the same thing about Hachivat on the opening, but it does dry down a lot different, so hopefully this one will start to diverge, be a little bit more of its own thing. But on opening first impression, it's very similar. Now, the other thing I would say is that I don't think Wilhelm Perfumeries is that inexpensive, so it's a very expensive house. And the thing is that, like, if you're gonna have, at least in my opinion, if you're gonna have a fragrance that's that close to another one, it needs to be cheaper than the other one. And I think it is probably per milliliter still cheaper though, because if you go by retail price anyways. If you go by market or gray market prices, this is one that I don't see on the gray market very often. But Aventus you can get for like 200, 250 in that range. Sometimes cheaper if you're lucky. And so per milliliter this is probably more expensive. It gives me, so very close to Aventus. There is something there that makes me think a little bit of a greenness. Now it's not overly green, but there is something that gives me kind of a very kind of tree and maybe pine vibe, but not, I wouldn't say it's pine. Very close, but there's just little things here and there that make me think it's a little bit different. I'm going to move over to Roasted Green Tea. Hopefully this one will develop a little bit, start to move in its own direction. But right now it's very, very close to Aventus. I definitely get 100% why people say that about this fragrance. Now maybe the performance also is better for that one too. So I at least found Aventus not to be a great performer. Okay, Roasted Green Tea. Wow. There is something there that gives me a little bit of a roasted, almost nutty vibe. Like a little bit of sweetness. Yes, kind of like a nutty sweetness. I do get a little bit of a tea vibe. It's not the most prominent thing, that nutty sort of lightly sweet vibe. There is actually definitely a tea there as well. It is nice. It's not super fresh, but it is sort of on the fresher side without being like, I don't know, maybe like an Acqua di Gio type of freshness or, you know, that kind of fragrance. That is really nice. That comes across as a little bit sweet, nutty, and a little hint of tea as well. It only gives off to me faint kind of feeling of green tea. I don't really get a super green tea vibe, but I do definitely, that nuttiness is really nice. I don't know if that's like a hazelnut or something like that. If I was gonna guess, I would say hazelnut. But really, really nice. Really nice off first impression. Not what I was expecting at all. It is pretty strong as well for a tea fragrance, so this one I think is going to have a pretty good performance. Yeah, very nice. I'm going to go back to Morning Chess. It's only been, a very short period of time, but I think the roasted green tea is kind of settling into a phase where it's going to be like that for a little while. At least that's the impression I get. Let's see what Morning Chess is doing. It still really has that Aventus vibe. There is something, again, that I do pick up with this one that is just a little bit different. I mean, it's not a complete clone of Aventus, but even in that case, it's funny because they could have tried to clone Aventus, because even brands or fragrances that try to be exactly like other fragrances usually are not 100%. It's very, very rare that I would say that they're really indistinguishable. There's usually something small here or there. And this almost smells to me like a really, really high quality clone in a lot of respects. Now, it does remind me a little bit of like Emperor EDP, although again, not quite the same. This one does have a little bit more. I feel like the fruitiness lasts a little bit longer even now. So I find, especially on Aventus, the fruity opening doesn't last that long, at least on the batches that I've tried. Even Emperor EDP, it starts to move into more of a birchy, musky kind of vibe very quickly. And this is definitely moving into a little bit more of a musky territory from what I can pick up, but there is still a decent amount of that sort of fruitiness. It doesn't come off so distinctly like pineapple like it did right as I was putting it on my hand. That was a really nice, crisp burst of very luscious, juicy pineapple that definitely I'm not getting so much anymore. And it does have a little bit more of those woody undertones. So it does seem to be going in the same way as Aventus as well. Where I found like Hacivat, if you do want something like Aventus but different, to me Hacivat totally does end up going in a very different direction with the oak moss, where it starts to smell quite a bit different. At least off the first, 5-10 minutes or whatever it's been, 5 minutes, we'll say 5 minutes. It's still lining up very nicely. It's kind of like in parallel with the trajectory of Aventus. It is nice. Like I said, I'm not really an Aventus fan, but I do think it does smell good. I'm not a hater, if you want to say it that way. It's just not something that personally I would pick up and I would personally reach for if I had it. I'm going to go back to roasted green tea. Let's see if it's changed a little bit. Let's see if the green tea is starting to make itself a little bit more present. So there is definitely something else there that's giving it a quality that's hard to pick up or hard to really define. That initial sort of hazelnutty sweetness is toning down. There is still a little bit of that vibe. It still has a sweetness. I'm definitely getting more of the tea, and if I actually had to say it reminds me a little bit more of maybe matcha than green tea. Just because it has a little bit more of that sort of almost frothy and sweet vibe, whereas green tea to me is a little bit more of a calm and relaxed vibe. So if you want something at least off this first impression, from my opinion, this doesn't really come off really strong like green tea. It does remind me a little bit more of matcha. And that's actually interesting because, I'm not a huge fan of matcha. And I actually did try, I think it was like, I forget what it's called. It's the new release by Maison Margiela. I can never say that. Maison Martin Margiela, I can never say that right. But I did try their new green tea fragrance, and I was a little bit disappointed because yes, it does smell a little bit like matcha, but it's very floral in my opinion. It's much more of a floral fragrance. We'll probably do a full review on that one in a little bit. But if you want something that reminds you more of matcha, less of that floral vibe, I think this is actually a really nice one to try. And that nice sweet little bit of roasted nuttiness is also a really, really nice touch. Gives it a very nice character. And I was thinking this would be more of a summer fragrance, but I really don't think so. I mean, you could probably wear it in the summer, but spring, maybe even fall, especially with that sort of roasted hazelnut vibe, it would be really amazing for. Morning Chest really could be more of an anytime fragrance. You know, it is Aventus-like, so it is kind of a Swiss Army knife in that respect. Very quality smelling, very high quality, very good smelling. So I think you can definitely wear this one to very formal occasions if you want to. Would not miss a step with that kind of vibe. This one, it's a little bit more casual. Definitely is a little bit more casual, a little bit more relaxed, which I find tea fragrances are. But it's not super chill like Wulong Cha. But it is still nonetheless nice. It does have that roasted sweet vibe that gives it a little bit of intrigue instead of just being straight up green tea fragrance, which is kind of what I was expecting, to be honest with you, but it is different. Anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Have you ever tried anything from J-Scent or Wilhelm Parfumeries? Got any suggestions, or are there any really great tea fragrances you want to recommend? Let me know down below. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.